what does make people truly happy for you?
Answer more with a curveball. So there's many studies globally out there that once you're north of ballpark 25,000 US dollars net per month on your bank account, money doesn't make you happier. And there's a lot of hard science, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all of that. Many ultra high net worth people are very unhappy, very unhappy. Drug issues, family issues. I would say aspire to make money up until you hit the end of the curve. And whatever your aspiring net worth is, 5 million, 10 million, 25 million, but then you have kind of netted it out. The rest is the deeper inner work, working on the things that many of us are very unconscious of. Many of us never enter into a self-authoring like mind.
Welcome to this episode of the Legends Made podcast. My guest is going to blow your mind. One of the coolest guests I think we've ever had. We're going to talk about AI. We're going to talk about tech. We're going to talk about all the things that they're doing to actually help better our culture. In fact, talking about fixing planetary issues. It's going to be a really great episode. So stick around and make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe and follow. Let's get into it with Alistair. Alistair, you're not Scottish, but you have a Scottish name.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. So where are you from originally?
I'm originally from the south of Germany,
Okay.
but moved very early to Berlin.
Okay.
The name I really have because my father was living for a couple of years in Scotland, and I'm the firstborn child. I have two siblings. And my father wanted to give me the name Alistair, which is the first awkward and fun example of my weird life. Because in Germany, you need to prove that a name is really a name. And I'm
Okay.
born 1979, so my father needed to prove that Alistair is really a name and get a birth certificate entry faxed from Edinburgh, Scotland to Germany. So I'm the first one ever who was given the name Alistair in Germany, because Germany is very restrictive with names because of the Nazi background. So anyhow, it's just an oddity, but I love the name.
So he didn't want you to have a German sounding name. He wanted you to have a...
He's still friends with the guy from whom I basically received the name, and his name is Alistair, and he was living with him in Scotland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Bryce, what would you name your first? Would you name after a friend? Alistair? I mean, yeah, I think Alistair's a great name.
I love Alistair. If all my life had been as easy as the name that I like, right, it would have been a walk in the park.
And so we met the other night at a South by Southwest kind of kickoff party, and we were sitting there and we were just doing a bunch of, like, everybody was saying hi to each other, and you're like, oh, I'm from Germany. I live in Guatemala now. I've done all these things in my life. I do meditation healing. I'm raising capital for a wastewater solution company. I'm raising capital for an energy company, and I'm doing coaching and healing for people. And I just was amazed by you. So thank you for...
For a podcast situation, I will use the same format. So I'm 19 years into B2B sales, usually very top down. Like I said, family offices, GPs of funds. And then when people ask me, like, who are you? I'm usually saying, give me 5 minutes, and then we make it all unravel. So I usually say, I'm a macroeconomist by training, because that's what I studied, and I'm a mystic. And with mystic, I really mean that the sum total of the human experience you can't really explain. And there's many ways to have a recognition of life, right, through various practices. And mine is just that I started to meditate very early.
You said like 29 you started meditating?
I started to meditate at 17.
17, okay.
So from age 7 to 20, I was a professional ballet dancer. So imagine I come
Wait, economist ballet dancer?
You missed that? Well,
I did.
From age 7 to 20, I was a professional ballet dancer.
I think I do remember that, but the tequila was kicking in at that point. So,
well, I don't drink anymore.
My tequila,
I know, all good, all good. The thing is, imagine I'm a boy growing up, la la la, and I just wanted to dance, right? And 1986, I think Dirty Dancing came out, and I told my parents I want to dance, but I come from a mid-sized Bavarian town, 200,000 inhabitants. So there was no hip hop class or modern dancing class. So anyhow, I started to train ballet, right? Really classical ballet, which was again an odd thing because I was always best in class in school and then became a ballet dancer, which mildly put to have a peer group connection with your other peers is difficult, right?
Well, most people, that are, so when I think about economists, I think
Mm.
about people who are crunching numbers and having to be very analytical. You don't find those people to be ballet dancers because that's just a different skill set.
Yeah, I think of life consisting of complementary pairs,
Okay.
right? If life is a paradox, like there's only a day with a night, right? There's only a man with a woman,
Right.
right? There is only success with failure.
Mm.
So the interest for a very macro perspective just came because I started to just read. I was an absolute bookworm in school. Like books were my thing. This was like pre-internet in Germany in the 80s. There was no cable television, right? So we had three programs and they were all utterly boring. So the only really interesting things they were in books,
Right.
right? So I just started to basically read the school library, like kind of all of it, what was there. And when the school library was done, I went to the public library. So think like Austin Public Library because we're recording the podcast here, and it's the mid '80s, and I'm a young polymath child, right? And there was no special education for children like me because I could read and write and do math up until the thousands and divide and all of that. So school was like utterly boring. So just spent my all my childhood basically reading books
Yeah.
and doing ballet. And then why Berlin? When the Berlin Wall fell, I told my parents I want to become a professional ballet dancer. So I moved alone to Berlin out of a family of seven,
How old were you at that point?
12 and a half,
Well, so you left your family at 12
12 and a half,
and a half. So 12 and a half, you left your family on your own.
to ballet boarding school to
Ballet
Berlin
boarding school. Okay.
in the wild early 90s in Berlin. Yeah.
Wow.
380 women in ballet boarding school, 50 guys, and I was one of them. And not many were hetero.
Yeah. Well, that's so you had really good odds there.
I had really good odds there. Yeah, it took me a while to integrate all of these experiences, like I would say in my late 20s to early 30s, and just become aware okay, Alistair, many people have a certain way of growing up. Yours was a little bit different,
Yeah.
right? And then when ballet career crashed, because you asked me when I start meditating, I had a long dark night of the soul. So dark night of the soul, I would call like a difficult period in your life, but not like for a year. I really had it for a bunch of years. And my father put me in front of a fully realized Buddhist monk. So really think like if you watch a Netflix documentary around Buddhism, and
Yeah.
there's a monk sitting, and I was 17. And I was staying with that. He was a Benedictine monk and a Zen Buddhist master. I spent 22 years. So I'm one of the guys here, if you see it in the camera, or for those who only listen, so I'm one of the guys wearing a mala, right, a necklace. But I really spent 22 years with that Buddhist monk up until he died of age 95. So I'm one of those who spent really a long time practicing meditation, right, for, yeah, since forever now.
Yeah. Most people don't find their way to a Buddhist monk. So that's just, I mean,
It speaks a lot about my father.
so how was your relationship with your father then?
My father was my first and deepest friendship and is still one of the core five people. So I don't know if you have ever heard around Dunbar's number from Professor Dunbar. You usually, if you're in a really difficult life situation, let's say you're broke, you have a car accident, or a family member has a heart attack, you don't have 500 people you call. You have the five ballpark, could be seven, but it's never 25. You have those five core, most inner nucleus people around you. Those that you trust with your life, that you would hand the keys to your car and the credit card and just say, I need your fucking help, like now, wherever you are. These are the people that would board an airplane for you. And in the case of a civil war, they would put out a machete, chop off a head, or kill someone. Like it kind of,
Yeah.
these are
Yeah.
the innermost. So Dunbar's number Actually met a very interesting founder here at South by Southwest who is building like an AI infrastructure based on Dunbar's number with Professor Dunbar and the guy who set up IBM Watson's framework. So all of the AI infrastructure for IBM Global. So anyhow, you usually have 5 innermost people, and then you have a next circle. That's usually 15 to 25. Your most important business partners. Let's say you have 5 amazing opportunities, but you can only cut 2 checks, right? Like these are the people you would consult. You're like, yeah, that sounds interesting. And I've done the due diligence and I want to go in on 3, but I can only afford 2. It's like, right?
Yeah.
And then you have usually the next circle is around about 150, right? These are, it's been a while that I've not been to New York and I need a venue in 48 hours because the other venue sponsor jumped out. So can you help me? Right? These are the ballpark 150. And the rest fades out.
Right.
They're acquaintances. You can ask them a favor, you give them a favor. But usually the 5 to ballpark 15 to 25 to around about 150 is through all cultures, all traditions, the same stable number. You call that Dunbar's number. So and in that Dunbar's number, my dad is innermost of 5.
Right.
He just visited us. So I live in Guatemala, fell in love there, got married there. And he visited us for 10 weeks. So it was really, we have a big house there. So he was really living with us for 10 weeks, hanging with my dad, like after work, before work, walking the dogs, stuff like that.
In your 40s, that's got to be cool.
Yeah.
Braden, hey, when you're in your 40s, you better be hanging with your dad, all right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, super grateful. And my dad is a wise human being. And which brings me maybe, this was really more the mystical part. So the macroeconomist really came from, so I'm born 1979. When the Mosaic browser launched in 1995, we built the largest sustainability database in the German-speaking countries, but across all verticals. So I'm not a one vertical expert. Hence, when you asked me, hey, you're running crazy deal flow, but you're not only doing waste management, or you're only doing water filtration, or you're running AI data center deals. So this like very macro perspective on the big like cycles, like Ray Dalio mentioned them. Met the guy who sets up Texas legacy funds here with Ray Dalio. I've always just been a very macro guy, and the rest is then history because I met my mentors. I come out of 4 mentor relationships, and my first mentor, like I said prior to the podcast, was a Romanian refugee. Her name is Dr. Mariana Bocesan, so everybody can Google her. Her family office's name is Aqual Capital, AQAL Capital, and a very large single family office. So she was a Romanian refugee. She was the first woman to ever study informatics at Stanford, one of the first one to be on the cap table at Oracle. Met her husband there. They're still married. Uh, and they exited their shares before the dip in the late 80s and then built like what you now call Internet 1, right? There's Internet 1, then there's Internet 2, now it's there Web 3, some people talk about Web 4. So they basically, in the German-speaking countries, built like Internet 1. Obviously made a huge fortune out of that and are now mainly in between like AI data center infrastructure. Yeah. It's just a fact. I don't know. I mean, mentors are a tough thing. Did you ever have a mentor?
I can't say that I've ever really had a mentor.
Maybe you should get one.
I need a, yeah.
No, I really mean it. Because a mentor kicks your fucking ass. I mean, I have a very good relationship with her and I have a very short line with her, but bro, I met her when I was 24 or 25. And she got all my aspirations. And then she was reading my birth chart. Because she's deep in astrology, and she says this will take up until you're in your 50s. But I was 25, and I'm like, bro, that sounds like a very fucking long time. She's like, well, you had very high aspirations,
Yeah.
so you gotta work your way through that, right? Because I don't come from a family of wealth, I've all built it myself. Not saying people of or coming descendants of wealth are worse, right? It's just usually have different entry tickets, different rooms open, right? But if you build it alone, you got to work through that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think one of the things that when I talk to most entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter where they entered, it's how they were able to connect with people and
Yeah.
then not necessarily leverage those relationships, but learn from those relationships and add more people that were kind of like the same cloth as them, right? That were thinking the same direction. And that's how they've really grown, become super successful. I mean, we've had some really amazing entrepreneurs on here. You're one of the most eccentric for sure, because in the best way possible.
But listen to the eccentricism is like so my first job interview was a very interesting one. So I had two job interviews from my second mentor. Um, and she always told me, you're not made for a large cap, like meaning for a big corporate
Yeah.
environment. You're just too crazy, right? And too uncompromising and too stubborn. And I'm like, but I want a large cap intro. So I won't disclose, but I wanted to go into one of the big four strategy consultings, like the McKinseys of this planet, right?
Okay.
And my grades were all made for that, right? So I meet the CEO of Germany off the record, right? This was not a normal application process. We go through the job interview, and he's like, "You have the job," and I'm like, "Okay, thanks, but I have another job application." So I was sitting in the train and driving to a small publishing house in Munich at a quarter of the entry uh, fee, right?
Hmm.
The entry payment. But I was with that publishing house because what he had built, I just found uniquely more fascinating. And in that job interview, he told me, okay, you're full time employed, but I don't care when you work, where you work, and what hours you work, because I was working in sales. I'm only interested that you hit the numbers. And this was in early 2007 after my studies. And then I built the first B2B magazine on sustainability issues, again, across all verticals, because that's that was basically my hard expertise. So when people ask me, what's your hard expertise? What's like something that like no LLM model can take from you? It's the relationships,
Right.
and that I'm a walking bookworm sustainability library, big picture guy, right? You can put me in any room with a very accomplished person and have a 2 hour long conversation around infrastructure or why it is important to reindustrialize America, which is a big thing, right? Unless America wants to be only dependent on China as its workbench, right?
Wow.
These are the type of conversations I'm having.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you're talking to, but yeah, I think it's better for us not to be attached to China as much. So okay, so I want to get to what you're doing with the companies that you're raising capital for right now. But man, you're just such an interesting person. I want to learn. So I really want to get to those things because I
Yeah.
think for the people watching this podcast or people who are thinking about the environment, what you're building with these companies is number one,
Mm.
sustainable, number two, achievable, and really can make a difference, both on the waste side and the energy side. So I definitely want to get to those. But you met your now wife, who is, she's Guatemalan, right?
She's Guatemalan. Yeah.
Okay. How did you? Because we won't get into the past life, but you got divorced at like 29, right? And
Yeah.
then you spent a few years finding yourself, and
No,
that's where I was just you're this guy who's raising all this money for these companies, and yet you were uh, in surf towns and like just tell us some of that.
yeah. So, so, so I'm a very romantic person, which I think comes from this crazy years in ballet boarding school,
Okay.
right? So I'm hetero, and if you're surrounded by hundreds of top-notch, gorgeous women your age and above your age, it kind of is an odd situation,
Yeah.
right? It's like the famous song, right, from 50 Cent, like the non-stop candy store. And I had a lot of beautiful experiences, like very early on.
Yeah.
Super innocent, right? I
Yeah.
mean, boy, I was 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm like, bro, what's happening here? So I told myself I really want to commit to a relationship when I fall in love. And on the day of my 18th birthday, there's a letter in front of my door, but without a post stamp on it. And in the letter, with a kiss from obviously a woman's mouth, is a letter from a woman writing me a love letter. And her name was Sophie, and she was French. That I knew since I was 15, and she was 2 years older, and we always had a thing going on. I was more the guy having a thing going on with more than one woman,
Right.
let's say. Not with 10, but with some. And she became the first love of my life. So I was like 5 years in a committed relationship with Sophie, then got married too early, separate story, separate rabbit hole, divorced early on good terms with my ex-wife. And then I was again basically nonstop in an 8-year relationship. And then when we, as friends, it was difficult but important for both of us. I'm still on very good terms with her. Ended another 8-year relationship. I was 37. And I told myself, hey, I need some room to breathe. Like, who am I if I'm not in a relationship? And this was pretty much in parallel. No, that's not true. There was a bunch of years before COVID. But when COVID hit, I was single. And the only country where there was no lockdown was Sweden. So I packed my bags and went to Sweden for 15 months. Had a good time there. And then I came back to Berlin, and then they announced another lockdown. And I'm like, bro, it's like, I'm not a COVID denier. It's a virus. It killed people, separate rabbit hole. But I said, I'm not risk group. So how the fuck can I get out of Europe? And there were only 2 international airplanes out, and I had a 48-hour window. So I was again packing my bags and didn't even have time to sublet my flat in downtown Berlin, in Berlin Mitte. So for the people that know Berlin, I'm a very Berlin Mitte guy. Spent many, many years there and have a very good network there and love Berlin still. But anyhow, I went to Mexico. Um, and then I'm at a conference in Quintana Roo, so the southernmost tip of Mexico, near Tulum, that famous,
Yeah.
vibey town. And I get invited to Guatemala. And in that conversation, I'm like, okay, but where is Guatemala? This was 5 years back, 6 years back.
Okay.
And they're like, you dumb dude, like it's a 4-hour drive just south of where you are currently. And I'm like, well, okay, yeah, why not? Invite me to Guatemala. And then I spent 3 months in Guatemala, totally fell in love with the country and Lake Atitlan, which is one of the deepest lakes and a very interesting conscious community there. And then came back 3 times. And then 3.5 years ago, in early 2023, I went into a darkness retreat. So, darkness retreat is when you go for 1 week in isolation and in darkness alone into a cave. And I did that because as a young kid, I was very afraid of darkness. And I knew about that practice since almost 25 years because I went to India in 2001 for a longer while. And then literally 5 days before I go into the darkness retreat, business model was always the same: advisory plus raising money for startup, seed, Series A, scale ups usually. A woman contacts me, my now partner, so the only ever woman who asked me out via my podcast, and says, "Hi, I'm Lucia. I've never done that. My friends tell me I should change my dating patterns. Are you really Alistair? Is this really your podcast? Because I run a very weird podcast. Uh, and can I meet you for a coffee?" And we fell in love. And then I went into the darkness retreat. When I came out of the darkness retreat, she told me to meet with her Mayan maestro, so a Mayan master, the timekeeper. And we had our birth charts matched, and we moved together. And we're now 3.5 years a couple. So I went from downtown Berlin to Antigua, Guatemala, which is a very beautiful town, the first town that the Spaniards ever built, which is a UNESCO World Heritage, very beautiful town built in 1532. So you basically walk in a late Renaissance town, which is one of the top wedding destinations of the Americas. So it's around about 1,500 like destination weddings happening in my neighborhood. And we have a big house there, have a good life there, and I'm frequently internationally traveling.
All of this makes me want to go to Guatemala now.
It's very beautiful. Come to
Yeah.
Guatemala, you will love it. It's actually perfect for kids to really have. It's so beautiful. Still a little bit off the beaten track. Never had one single. So I see more homeless, desperate, junkie people in one day in Austin that I've seen in 5 years in Guatemala.
Oh,
There's so
yeah.
many weird stories around emerging economies.
Yeah.
That's a very intact social fabric, right? It's
Right.
all is around the family.
Yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole. That's a really good rabbit hole to go down, but I think we'll stay out of that one because that
Yeah,
one usually gets me in trouble.
yeah,
I'm telling you, on my real estate stuff, I would talk about these issues happening in Austin, and people would get very upset with me for just
yeah,
talking about obvious
yeah.
issues
It's
happening.
obvious issues,
Yeah,
especially in the United States.
yeah.
It's terrifying. I mean, land as a tourist in San Francisco, the first time I was ever in San Francisco, I was just shocked. I was literally shocked. And I was invited by very accomplished people. And was like shocked. I'm like, what is this country? Right?
It, yeah,
It's terrifying.
yeah. It baffles me the amount. Quick rabbit hole. What baffles me is that we spend all this money on helping homeless people. While if you look at cultures like Guatemala, where it's like the community is coming together to help these people, right?
Exactly.
Right. So I keep telling people you can't spend your way out of a problem. You have to actually fix the problem.
Yeah.
You can't just throw money on it. And we continue to throw money, but then what happens? These NGOs, these other companies come in and say, okay, well, we're gonna do this, and then they're given a bunch of money, and regardless of them actually achieving that goal, all that money just goes to the heads of those companies, and it's just laundered on out. And
Yeah.
it doesn't actually help the problem, which is insane.
Yeah. So I think before I go into big picture, uh, big investment stuff, let's just finish or complete the picture for the listeners or those that see us via video. So I meditated 15 years, never touched any substances before when I was 32. So my first childhood experience is that I'm 2 years and 8 months old and I play in the kitchen and the automatic coffee machine falls over and the boiling hot coffee melts with my polyester jumpsuit. So I burned my left upper leg up until the bones. It's still
Oh,
a
wow.
scar as big like as a hand. So you call that a shock trauma,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you have children yourself, right? Shock trauma is different than a developmental trauma, like depending on your upbringing, your childhood, your parents, your love, your bonding mechanisms. And I always read about psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. And some people will giggle or laugh or just listen in with curiosity. So, in that psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, which was with MDMA, so which is the same compound
Mm-hmm.
like ecstasy, I was there lying blindfolded, and the guy was just asking me one question for 1.5 hours. How did you feel before you burned yourself?
Before.
Because I was 2 years and 8 months old, so I didn't have a conscious recognition of me feeling before. An interesting thing is, which is important here for the context, when I discovered alcohol at the age of 13 and marijuana at the age of a little bit less than 16, which I have been both heavily abusing, I was basically dimming down my life force. But in that therapeutical session, I had a deep breakthrough moment when you asked me preparing for the podcast, What's a Ceremony? Because I suddenly had access to this life force in me that all the people sense around me now in my mid 40s. They're like, wow, you're like beaming, radiating joy, laughter, genius, like you're attracting a lot of interesting people. But I was dimming that light down. And that was the beginning of my, I would say, deeper healing journey. Because you can sit with a therapist and talk about, yeah, my relationship and with my children, it's a little bit difficult. And I tend to overwork, but my bank account really looks good. But in a ceremonial setting, including the right preparation and the, like, let's say, post-production, almost like the integration of the ceremonial moment, you can heal like a lifetime of garbage, right? And that's a ceremonial setting. And then um, I was 11 years with the same female shaman in Berlin. Did a shamanic training for the listeners that know a little bit the stuff. So one of those guys who did more than 100 times ayahuasca. I work since 10 years with the Virarika tradition, and I have 4 initiations in the Mbwiti tradition. It's all on my personal website that I do not hand out regularly because it's different than my company investment website.
Mm-hmm.
But I have overlaps, right? Um, and what has that done to me is just such a deep healing and arriving in myself that before the healing, I did not know it could exist, right? Because you can only see it after, right? While you're in high school, you don't know how it feels to be a responsible adult. Prior to children, you don't know how it feels to be a father. And once you have done the deeper inner healing work, you really just know it. It's kind of a paradoxical thing to state. Just to finish off the like, let's say the personal part before we can dive into like
Sure.
more business related issues. Yeah.
Yeah, you were telling me. So you've helped a lot of people with um, these journeys as well as. I mean, you've gone through them yourself. Um, Talk to me a little bit more about a ceremony because you were saying, oh, one of the ceremonies you could do is going out into nature.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody's trying to heal something in themselves, like why is something like that beneficial? Going out and doing that ceremony, or you did the one where you were alone in a cave for 5 days
Yeah.
after falling in love, by the way, which was
Which was really intense and beautiful and in a way simple, but and I can come to that in a moment. Well, first thing is my ethics is always crossing myself out of the equation if there's somebody better suited with a better expertise. So I don't coach people or I don't go into ceremony with people that have a deeper trauma.
Mhm.
And you can usually see that, measure that, and assess that. So somebody that's super dysfunctional or very accomplished but hiding a cocaine issue for 30 years, or somebody who's in a stable relationship but cheating on his wife for 30 times, right? I wouldn't coach, right? So I work with people usually kind of like you're, funnily enough, my ICP, very accomplished people that are more in this like, I don't quite know where I want to go, but there's this itching inside of me, in my soul, in my chest that, like I said, you can spend the rest of your life compounding wealth in Austin and doing real estate and doing club deals with your friends. It's not bad. Most people stay like that. And most people that create a deeper relationship with me, they're just called for something bigger. So most conversations that I'm having, they're usually legacy oriented. So I've coached people up until their mid 70s. Usually people are older than me. But I also have clients, usually this like early exited founders, right? They're like kind of 25, 28. They have all the money anybody can dream of, like intergenerational wealth. And they're like, okay, now what, right? Um, and then the different ceremonial settings, just to describe them, really depends on which part of you you want to heal. Have you ever heard about the chakra system?
yeah.
Okay, cool. So, so MDMA, which is a very loving, kind, cuddly, warm experience, almost as if you were again to be in the womb of your mother before being given birth into this crazy reality and needing to figure it out as a human being. So usually very potent when I coach couples, right? Usually like longer term relationships, people that have like 3, 4 children, people that are like 15, 20, 25 years in a relationship. And they're like, hey, we love each other. We want to stay together, but there's so much stuff we put under the carpet that we don't know how to talk about. And some things happened and I want to forgive you, but I don't know how to do what. For that MDMA, like healing the heart
Mhm.
is really powerful. Um, then mushrooms or LSD are really powerful for people that really want an experience of like either becoming one with nature, unity consciousness. So I give one example that I'm allowed to quote because I'm not allowed to quote my clients, right? It's not true. Some of them are quoted on my homepage, but a very select few in the ceremonial space. Because what's legitimate, it's not always legal, as we know when we talk about substances. So my father was 70, never touched any substance, but meditated for 45 years. And he saw me healing and growing and my success and my laughter and all of that. And he's like, I want to do LSD. I'm like, okay, sure. What do you want? He's like, I think I just want to become one with nature. So we were preparing that and talking about that and what's the right setup. And then this was 3 years ago. I was visiting Germany, and the river Main in Würzburg, where my parents live, is one of the largest rivers in Europe. So we're searching a peninsula in the river with two old oak trees and a lagoon. And the river is so clean you can really see like for meters underwater. And I was administering LSD to my dad, and very unexpected, my dad was super panicky. And I'm like, bro, what's happening? He's like, fuck, that's strong. Can this go down? And like, bro, this is not even the first 5%. It's like your ego, your name, your identity, everything that you have ever known will be gone in the next 30 to 45 minutes. He's like, yeah, but can't we stop that? I'm like, no, you can't stop it. This like takes like 12 hours. He's like, I think I will die. And I'm like, well, then you die. So he was crouching up with me. No, it's a real thing, and I'm allowed to share it. So he was crouching up on me, and he said, "Can you touch me?" So he was becoming like a baby. He was crouching on me, and I was just cuddling with him, and then he was rolling to the side and lying back and literally dying. I mean it, right? He was literally gone, almost as if the soul has left the body, and then he was entering again his body, and he was crying of bliss, like tears of joy, for 5 to 10 minutes. And then, obviously, because that was his first experience with LSD, he just started to walk around like a 2 year old, like a 3 year old, like a 4 year old, and looking at the trees and touching the trees and touching the grass. And then he was going down to the lagoon and touching the water. And I was always behind him, like 3 meters behind him, right? Or 5 meters behind him. And then he was recognizing me again and recognizing that he has a voice. And he's like, that's the most beautiful thing I've seen in my life. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's it when your filters are gone. And that's not to romanticize ceremony, but we accumulate knowledge, judgment, perception from earliest childhood on. So what a either plant medicine, or I'm a big fan of LSD ceremony, can do, it takes all the filters away. Like everything that's good or bad that your parents told you to do so, or everything that after a 15-year long relationship you're afraid to tell your wife, or your children love you but you also know behind your back they're talking some things about daddy. Like that shit is gone. And the most important thing is really the preparation. Like what do you really want to heal? And then the integration, right? So I'm very, very critical with the psychedelic renaissance at large, because there's way too many people doing that in way too many wrong settings, and a lot of shit can go haywire. But if as a stable adult you take a decision, you prepare it, and you integrate it, it can be one of the most profound healing experiences, especially for older adult people. And with older adult, I mean like really not a 15-year-old, not an 18-year-old, not a
Right.
20-year-old, but like if you have a stable life in your mid 30s, mid 40s, or whatever, this can be a very profound, like transformational experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've got so many follow-up questions to all of that, but I do want to get to all of your successes business-wise.
Yeah. Sure.
But to have an experience with your father like that, that's got to be a very core memory. Is that become a core
Yeah,
memory
we
for you?
just celebrated. So my father has, as I've baked into both my lineages, meaning the feminine side and the masculine side, what you call a Samaritan complex. So people that are very good to other people and helping the neighbors and helping everyone, but kind of also getting lost in that a little bit, right? Um, and I've been helping and coaching my dad to really create his dream because he's been a journalist. He's been writing more than 100,000 articles for all sorts of newspapers and shit like that. But he actually really wanted to write a big badass novel, and he just finished it. He came to Guatemala to finish it. And it's like a 800 pages like novel and very complex and many characters. Right? He just wanted to leave the world a novel. And I'm like, okay, it's not my thing, but a lot of people dream of writing a book, and if that's your thing, let's help you, support you on your way to write a book. Yeah.
Is the novel out yet?
It's not out yet. It's in like proofreading,
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, with the publishing house. Yeah.
Usually, when you've got something 800 pages, that's a pretty dense novel. Like, what
Yeah.
did they end up kicking that down to?
Let's see, the proofreading doesn't really matter. I mean, for him, I see it really more as a milestone of
Mm-hmm.
writing some novels. I don't think he's at an age that he will write 50, but maybe he writes 3 or 5 or 7 or something like that. But for him, it was a big thing to get out of, again, his autopilot mind, of this, like, I need to help him and her and them, and everybody's getting older and they are dying and they have Parkinson, like all of that, and just say, hey, dad, you're fresh, right? He's young, he's strong, he's vibrant. I'm like, hey, you're in your early 70s. You want to write a book? You better fucking start writing a book, right? Instead of caring about everybody that's up your ass.
Are you ready to elevate your soul? Well, 1925 Tequila is the sponsor of this video, and their whole mission is to elevate the soul. If you haven't tried this tequila, it is one of the best tequilas I've actually ever tasted. Go to 1925tequila.com and you can actually order a bottle for yourself. Let's get back to the video.
So we've gone through a lot of what you've done personally, just on the personal side, not necessarily the business side. Walk us through. You have two companies right now that you're getting funding for, right, and raising for the cap table. Walk us through both of those because they're both really, really interesting companies.
Yeah. So sure. So with three principals, the company is called 783 Capital Partners. 783partners.com or 783capitalpartners.com. And we usually do seed to Series A, post revenue scale up. And the viewfinder, for those that love really big numbers, it is what you call trillion-dollar markets. So waste management alone in the United States is per year 4.7 trillion either unaccounted for or a liability on the balance sheet. This is because recycling doesn't really work. There's way too many different sorts of plastic. There's some ways you can try to alleviate the problem, but our bet, so to say, our upside, a lot of it is in deep tech. We also have 3 AI rollouts, but to sketch those two companies is really for companies that have the potential to disrupt whole industry verticals. So let's just stay. One of the companies is called Eden Energy. It's based out of Austin, and they have a unique waste management process, and it's not pyrolysis. They inject water. It's kind of a tweak on the fracking technology. So they inject water and very high pressure and then break down the molecular bonds of every carbon-based material. So you need to manually pre-sort rock, glass, and metal, but all the rest, all the sludge, all the ugly things that you don't want to know, all the shit that ends up on a landfill, basically gets into a big pressure cooker and like breaks down the molecular bonds. And then the offtakes, the product, so to say, is synthetic fuel, biochar, fertilizer, and gray water. And depending on which geo region you're negotiating, they have a different value, right? So when we talk, because we do international business development, so uh, we basically do the capital readiness for the companies to be ready to be in front of capital, a deck structure, cap table management, data room, like all of that. Then we structure the capital, but we also do international business development. So let's stay with Eden Energy, for example. If I speak to people from the Arab Peninsula, the synthetic fuel is kind of interesting, but also not that interesting. Why? Because, well, they have a lot of oil, just dirt cheap.
Yeah.
But the biochar and the fertilizer is super interesting for them. They're very valuable.
What's biochar?
Um, a biochar or carbon black is an international commodity. It basically permanently captures the carbon,
Okay.
right? It's a carbon capture. Anyhow, it's like for anybody that really loves deep tech, check out Eden Energy or contact me via the podcast, or just on LinkedIn, Alistair Langer, whatever. Um, that's one. The other one is called Pure Blue Tech. Very clean cap table, 11 years R&D, very smart young entrepreneur, and they're also post revenue scale up. And they're working with a standard module that's used for filtering basically liquids. So the deck that I sent you is mainly written for large-scale reverse osmosis. So what is reverse osmosis? Reverse osmosis is when you chemically break down the H2 molecule from water and then put it back together. And we're just finishing a convertible. Our mandate is prepping them for the Series A. There's something left in the convertible, and they're negotiating very large POCs. So they have a POC from one of the largest French frying producing companies in the United States. And there, when you look at the deal, the sum total of that one POC is not that big. But the play here is that every industry scale water or liquid filtration, it's series of those elements, right? So it can be 1,000 or 15,000 of the same elements. They're like kind of 4 times the size of this like tequila box, like a big subwoofer or something like that. And they're the only company on the planet who cleans the membranes with ultrasound, right? So the same technique that you use when you have your teeth cleaned at the dentist. So they do not only save the chemicals, but they drastically lower the costs of the operating, the OPEX. And so the bet here is actually pretty simple. If in the next 3 to 6 months that French frying producing company really finds out with the couple of hundred elements they bought, they're really drastically lowering their OPEX, there's a very high likelihood they're gonna order a bunch more, right? And the rest is they have a POC from the largest reverse osmosis installation in the Caribbean, and they're negotiating with LA County. And if they get LA County down, after the Series A, they will never need to raise another round dilutive, right? Because then all the data is proven, the cap table is solid, and they don't need to raise dilutive capital.
So with both of these products, let's start with the water purifying company. What applications? So there's a French fry company. You're obviously talking to LA. So we're basically taking dirty brown water and converting it back to potable water, drinkable water.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about Pure Blue Tech, which comes from my nerdy walking macro sustainability library guy, is like water runs like horizontal across all verticals. So you need in like utility scale, industry scale water filtration in AI data centers,
Yeah.
chip wafer production, pharmaceutical industry, chemical industry, oil and gas, and desalination. This is just why we usually don't open up the conversations with one generic deck,
Okay.
right? Even though that would be my thing, it's usually easier to talk to people that are in reverse osmosis and then send them the reverse osmosis deck. But usually people that really have done investments into the water space, they get the play, right? I mean, the whole fracking industry needs a bunch of water. Well, what do you do with all the gray water? Well, so far they're just pumping it back. I mean, the underground aquifers of the United States are heavily polluted, right? So this is a huge problem for many generations to come. So you need to think very large scale. Hence, when I mentioned trillion-dollar markets, I really mean it, right? This is what obviously I studied, right? But you really need to think big and long term because our lifespan is very limited. I'm 46, most likely in 50 years, I'm gone. If I cross 100, then in 60 years, I'm gone. It's a short lifespan, right? And you need to think like large and intergenerational cycles. And that's usually, my ICP. When you ask me like, who are the people you're coaching? It's like young exited founder, uh, family offices, intergenerational family offices, can also be first generation family offices, um, GPs of funds, but not people that are just chasing the next meme, like the next, okay, this made us. We made in a different deep tech deal, we made our investors a 40x in deep tech in 2 years.
In 2 years, wow.
Yeah. So multiples are totally possible, but you really need the right team to source those deals, right? This basically what we're doing. We're on the deal flow side, we're on the capital side, both of it.
How did you fall into? I mean, obviously, economics, ballet definitely put you
Yeah.
up for this. How did you fall into working with a company like this?
Well, this is so 783 Capital Partners, um with three principals. I'm 46. The younger kid on the block, Ganesh, really born with the name Ganesh, is 31, and my managing partner. So my managing partner is born on the same day like me, September 10, but I'm born 1979. He's born 1964. So, and he was the youngest managing director of one of the oldest and largest family offices in the United States. And we got to know each other on a job, on a mandate, and had been working together for 1.5 years for a very large crypto rollout. And I asked him to mentor me. And I'm like, hey, Steven, would you mentor me in a side conversation? He's like, no. Fuck, I've been searching a guy like you for a while. And he's like, but I'm inviting you on equal parts on the last cap table of the last company that I want to build. Right. And
Okay.
that really put me in that position. So I'm the people guy, I'm the deal flow guy, I'm the relationship guy, the strategic partnerships guy, the channel partners, the referral agreements guy, the hard nitty gritty of the due diligence. Or when we organize a roll up, we're just finishing a roll up and about to head into two other roll ups. Like all the complex legal financial stuff, that's really my managing partner doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you got involved basically just because you asked somebody to be your mentor.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
seems so. Yeah.
So a lot of the people that watch this are
Mm.
young entrepreneurs or looking to get into becoming an entrepreneur. So what I find interesting is you just basically asked. The one thing that people have a hard time doing is just asking that question. Like, okay, I'm going to fail. So why should I ask? Right? And you're just one of those people that's like, okay, I can do this. Yeah, sure. Hey, will you teach me? And I think that's one thing that some people just fail to do is say, hey, will you teach me?
I would go one layer deeper. I would
Sure.
say ask and go work on where the biggest pain is. When you asked me prior, like, hey, who are the people that you're coaching? If you work on something where you're already pretty accomplished, this is polishing, this is refining your genius. But when you really go where the pain is, again, my example could be really alcohol and marijuana. So I stopped drinking and I stopped smoking marijuana 11 years ago. And once I really closed that door at age 35, my whole life unraveled. But that was also my biggest pain, like dimming my life light, right? Dimming my energy, dimming my weirdness, right? So when you say, hey, you're very eccentric to be on my podcast, it's like, be authentic. You know what I mean? It's very consciously done. I mean, these are tailor made shoes, right? These are like hand poke tattoos, or these are not machine made tattoos. Not all of them, but my whole chest is like hand poked. So I think shine with your uniqueness. I would say that's one thing, and ask for the right help, right? Because when you ask for the right help, doors open. And then I would say be specific, because life is like a three-legged stool, right? If you work on everything at the same time, it's too much. Don't put too many interventions out there, right? If money works, but family life doesn't work, well, work on the family life, for example, right? But if love works fine and you're healthy, but the money doesn't work, well, get business coaching. Like, kind of, it's like just ask for the right intervention.
I'd never really thought of life as a three-legged table, but that does actually make sense.
Yeah, totally. Because a lot of people that may have listened or are still in here a little bit longer on, they're people, this is kind of really the golden middle is always the right path. Like no intervention at all, right? Like if you never had a coach, never had a mentor, never had a shaman, never had a healer, never had a oracle, never had like a wilderness training, well, do something like that, right? But if you're only on the quest, only searching, right, then bro, get your fucking ass on the ground, just make money, like chill for a bit, right? Because ultimately life you can't figure out, right? There
Yeah.
is not that one final question, that one final mountain, that one final enlightenment, that one final truth, right? Like life is ever changing, mysterious, unfolding in front of your own eyes. And it's individual for everybody.
One thing we were talking about before you got on the podcast was talking about you mentioned my watch, and we were talking about the car, and how you were talking about how a lot of people you work with, it's like, what's what are they looking for in life? What's the next best thing? And so one of the people we've had recently on the podcast, we were talking about, does money actually buy you happiness? And you were kind of asking me like,
Yeah.
well, what's the next thing for you? And I'm like, I'm in that weird spot where I don't really know. Like, I don't think cars make me that happy. Watches don't make me that happy. I think I bought those things thinking they would make me happy.
Yeah.
So what does make people truly happy for you?
I want to answer more with a curveball. So there's as many studies globally out there that once you're north of ballpark 25,000 US dollars net per month on your bank account, ballpark, money doesn't make you happier. And there's a lot of like hard science, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, all of that. Many ultra high net worth people are very unhappy, very unhappy. Drug issues, family issues, way too old men with way too young women in their fourth marriage, like all of these weird stories. So I would say aspire to make money up until you hit the end of the curve. And whatever your aspiring net worth is, 5 million, 10 million, 25 million, but then you have kind of netted it out. The rest is the deeper inner work, working on the things that many of us are very unconscious of. Many of us never enter into the very famous, I think it's also a Harvard guy, into a self-authoring like mind. Once you become aware that you can like reprogram, reformat yourself on a very like kernel of the operating system that you're running on, then it becomes like an endless game, right? They're like finite games and infinite games. So my infinite game, which is my podcast, is mapping the necessary building blocks towards a planetary civilization ahead. Can I do that? No. Can we do that? No. This is a many hundreds of years journey. But my curiosity, which then goes from deep tech to venture to AI rollouts to disrupting whole industries, is really just trying to make a difference. And this trying to make a difference can be different for different people. I also profoundly feel and think that in that sense, I'm very conservative. I will spend 6 years as an altar boy prior to going to ballet boarding school. And I have the Lord's Prayer tattooed on me. Is give back. So they're really the seven virtues and the seven sins, meaning give to poor people, give to your community, give to your neighborhood, I can't say you give to everyone, but some people are really in dire need. Or that old friend who didn't quite make it and asks you for a personal loan, and you're like, will he really ever be able to pay me back? But just like, didn't ask me for that much. I'm gonna cut him a check. It's not an investment. He's really in a dire situation. Just like, be a good human being, right?
Yeah.
Just like, in that sense, I'm very conservative, right? And I think the deeper joy, satisfaction, and the sparkles in your eyes will always come when you give back. So you receive and you come back. That's a lying 8. This infinity symbol in mathematics. If you only take, become greedy, more net worth, all of it, all eyes on me, I'm so important. This is just like ego bullshit. It's like, yeah, that's not so much the circles that I'm in. I'm really more in these people that are fighting like, okay, what's, like Jeremy, like, what's your legacy? What do you want to what do you want to unlock? What's your next thing? What's your next mountain? What's your next thing, right? If not, life gets boring. And if you're boring, you usually stay in the same circles, do the same things, and then 10 years back, you're like, fuck, I'm still doing the same things that I did when I'm 10 years back. I find that just not interesting. I get easily bored.
So what if somebody is in that situation where they're like, I'm just not happy. I need to find my happiness. What would you advise them?
Well, a lot, yeah. So truth be told, I have way more people approaching me than I could handle as possible clients. So I give you one example that happens pretty frequently, also here during Austin, during South by, is I have a very accomplished woman, often in a family office space, and I don't know, because I share so openly, I receive so openly. And they're telling me this whole crazy rabbit hole. And I'm like, bro, here's a phone number from a woman who's a trauma therapist. I don't take a kickback. She only works with women with similar crazy stories. Just contact her and say you're coming from Alistair, and rest assured, you'd get an assessment call. Or people ask me for a coaching, and I'm like, I don't think I'm the right fit, because you just need somebody else. So I refer a lot of people. Ultimately, I think, as you know yourself, it's almost like syndicating a club deal, right? It's like you can't do all the deals, you can't write all the checks. It's like if people, even after the podcast, come to me, some I may take, others I may refer. Other people ask me very specific stuff. They're like, hey, Alistair, you were talking on that podcast around ayahuasca. Do you host ayahuasca retreats? I'm like, no, I work with substances, but I don't host ayahuasca retreats. Even though I've been in a lot of ayahuasca retreats, but I think I know some very accomplished healers in that space. And here are just 3 URLs, and you find out for yourself. But these are people I know for decades,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, look, I have 1,000 more questions to ask you, and maybe the next time you're in Austin, if you've written in the comment section that you want to bring Alistair back, that's actually super helpful. But the next time you're in Austin, I definitely want to sit down with you again, whether it's on the podcast or not. And I want to be super respectful of your time, because I know you got to get back to South by, and like you've got a lot of stuff going on. So I really appreciate you for your time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Can't wait for the next one.